Now that we have learned about functions, we have built our own custom functions, and we have used a lot of different built-in functions. Let's learn some more advanced information about functions. The very first one that we are going to talk about is Splat operator. What is a Splat operator? Splat operator is when we add 3 dots before the name of the argument of the function. For example, if I write function test ... names, this is a Splat operator. So what is it used for? It can be used to do 2 things. First, unpack parameters to the function. Second, to combine variables into an array. So let's see an example of both cases. Let's say we have a function called say hello. Function say hello. And this function is going to say echo hello, my name is name and I am 8 years old. So this function needs to get name and age. Great. Let's run this function right now. Say hello, I don't know, John 32. Let's see what we'll get. Hello, my name is John and I am 32 years old. Perfect. Now if I pass an array to this function, for example, if I say hello, if I say I have a person, which is an array, and say the first one is John and the second one is 32, this is the name and the age of the person. So when I pass this to this function, I want it to work. But at the moment, if I run this code, I'm going to get an error, too few arguments. My function right now thinks that this person is the name and the age is empty. So that's why we got an error. Now let's see how we can use a Splat operator to fix this issue. I'm not going to change anything in my function. My function is the same. It gets name and age and echoes this sentence. But I want to pass this array so the function would know that this array is going to be the name and the age. So when I call the function, I can use 3 dots. These 3 dots are going to unpack this array to different variables. So the first item would be name, the second item would be age. If there are any other items in this array, it's going to be ignored. But the first item and the second item are going to be used for name and age inside this function. So let's see if it works now. PHP index.php and perfect. Hello, my name is John and I am 32 years old. Perfect. These 3 dots unpack this array to this argument. Now the second use case for Splat operator was to combine variables into an array. So the opposite of what we did here. So let's see an example of that as well. Let's say I have a function called my friends and it gets person A, person B, and then here I'm going to echo person A is my friend plus PHP ends of line, and person B is my friend. So I'm going to get 2 variables and 2 names, and I'm going to echo that this is my friend and this is my friend. So let's see if this function works, and let's first comment this part out. My friends, and I'm going to call Pratham and Simon. Now if I run this command, if I run this file, I get Pratham is my friend and Simon is my friend. This is great, but what if I wanted to add more people? Every time I have to come to the function definition and add more people, like person C, person D, person E, and then add a line here like person C is my friend, person D is my friend, person E is my friend. After a while, it would be very cumbersome and tiring. I don't want to do that. So how can I use a Splat operator to fix my issue? Let's see. Last time we used a Splat operator when we were calling the function. This time we are going to use splat operator in function definition. So instead of writing person A, person B, I can change it to ... people. Now all the arguments that are passed to this function call are going to be converted to an array, and then I have this array called people, and then I can write a for each loop for each people as person. I can write echo that person is my friend, and that's it. This splat operator is going to get all these arguments, whether there is only one or there are multiple arguments, and it's going to convert all of them to an array, and then I can use this array inside the function. So first let's see if it works with these two names. Perfect. Now if I want to add more people, I don't need to change anything in my function definition, and I can simply come here and add the name. For example, Vito, Hasib, and so on. Now if I run the code, I'm going to get Pratham is my friend, Simon is my friend, Vito is my friend, Hasib is my friend. I can call these functions without any problem. Some of the built-in functions in PHP also use this splat operator. For example, we have already seen var dump, where we say var dump name is going to echo that and tell me that this is a string with a length of 4. Perfect. At the moment we passed only one value, but we can pass multiple values, 1, 3, 5, an array even. And if I run the code, I'm going to get the var dump of all of them. Name, integer, 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 an array with 3 items. Each one of them is an integer. That's because, as you can see here, even my IDE shows that it's ... values. So everything that I pass here is going to be converted to an array with this splat operator, and then this function is going to dump the information about these variables. With just 3 dots, we could do a lot. Isn't it amazing? Now let's go to the next topic, which is pointer of argument. What do I mean by pointer of the argument? Let's say I have a function, change my number, and it gets one argument, which is number, and here it's going to say number equals to number plus 10 and return the number. So any number that I pass to this function is going to be added to 10, and then I get a new number. So let's see. Let's say I have a equals to 2, and if I call change my number a, this is going to return a number, so I'm going to store it. B equals to change my number and echo b. Let's run the code and I'll get 12. But if I echo a is still 2, b is 12. A hasn't been changed, but b, which is a new number, has been changed. But when I add this to the argument before the name of the argument, it's no longer to get it as just a simple argument. It's going to get the pointer of that variable. So here this number and this a are literally the same. PHP is going to change whatever that is inside that pointer. Not just this number 2, is going to change the pointer of that number 2. So right now I expect this number 2 for a would also change. Let's see what happens. If I echo b, I'll get 12. Great, because here we have changed the number and returned the new number here. But if I pass a as well, a is also 12. Because right now here it says, okay, let's say for example in position 25 in my RAM the variable a has been stored. So this is going to go to that pointer in my RAM. It's going to say, okay, I'm going to change this number that is in this pointer 25 in your RAM, and it's going to change that. So here we are actually changing a. We are saying a equals to a plus 10, and we are returning a. And then here we are saying b equals to a. That's why a and b, both of them were 12. Do you remember when we talked about array functions, and when we said, okay, if we have an array and we want to sort it, when I call sort functions on the array, it's going to change the array itself. It's not going to return a new array. And as you can see, even my IDE is showing me that this is the pointer to that array, not a simple argument. So be careful. These kind of function arguments can be very useful sometimes, but in some cases it can be very dangerous as well, because we do not want to change a, we do not want to change the original value, original data, but we want to change it and store it in a new variable. So if I wanted to do that, I should never do this. But if I want to change the original value, if I'm okay with it being changed, then I can use this before the argument name, and it's going to change the original variable for me. And it's always good to know which functions are using these kind of arguments. For example, if you don't know that sort functions in PHP are going to change the array itself, and you need the original array as is, then you are going to have a problem, because every time you run this function, it's going to change the original array itself. It's very powerful, but be very careful with it. The last topic that we are going to talk about is callback functions. We have seen it many times. For example, when we talked about array map, if you remember, we said array map is going to get a callback function as the first argument, and the second argument would be the array. And when we talked about callback functions, we also learned that a callback function can be a predefined function. Like if I have a function test, I can simply pass a name to it, or it can be an anonymous function, so I can define the function here and get the argument and write the function as part of this argument itself. And now we are going to learn how we can have callback functions as an argument in our own functions. So let's do it. Let's say I have a function called change, and the first argument is the variable that we want to change, and the second argument is a callback function, the function that is going to be applied to this a and change it. How can I do that inside my function? Anything that we pass as callback function is going to be stored in this callback function, so we expect it to be a function, so we can call it like a function simply by adding two parentheses. That's it. That's everything you need to know about callback functions. Now this is a function, and I can pass arguments to this. So I can pass a. So now this callback function is going to be called with the argument of a, and it's going to do whatever that it was supposed to do and return a value. So I'm going to store the new a inside a new variable and return this new a. Return this new a. Perfect. Now we don't care what a is or what the callback function is and how this callback function has been passed to the function. All of them are going to work without doing any extra work. So let's see some examples. First, let's see an example with predefined callback function. So let's say I have a function called add. This function gets a number, and then it's going to return this number plus 10. So if I pass 2, it's going to return 12. And I want to apply it to, I want to use it as a callback function inside this change. So I'm going to say echo change. The first argument is the number that I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass 2. And the second argument is the callback function. Here we want to pass predefined callback functions. So all I have to do is simply add its name as a string and it's going to work. So let's run the function. Right now this change is getting this a, and then it's getting the predefined function which is add. Then this add is going to get an argument which we are passing a to it. This is going to change the number and add 10 to it and return this number. So we are going to store it and we are going to return it, and then here we are going to echo that return value. So let's see how it worked. Perfect. Now if I pass 50, I expect to get 60. Perfect. This was predefined. What if we pass anonymous functions? So let's say instead of calling this function add, I wanted to write some anonymous functions. So for example, I wanted to say, okay, there is a function that gets a number and then it's going to return this number to the power of 2, and then we are going to echo it. This is an anonymous function. We have defined it inside our function call. So let's see what it's going to do. At the moment it's going to get this number, which in case we are going to pass 50 to it, and it's going to change it to the power of 2 and return that value, and we are going to return that new value. So let's see if it works. Perfect. If I pass 2, it's going to return 4. Perfect. This is how easy it is to define callback functions as your argument, and this is very powerful. We have seen and used a lot of built-in functions that are using these callback functions as their argument, and as I said, it's very simple but very powerful. And this is the end of this section. Let's go to the next topic.